Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to the Cinema Savvy Awards. This is the fourth week that we're running this series. I believe we've got 6 more left after this. Basically, this is our own little award series that we're doing in the run-up to the actual night of the Oscars. And we have a double whammy tonight. We have 2 categories that we're going for tonight, and we're basically talking everything film music. So today we'll be going through our nominees and winners of Best Original Score and Best Original Song. As always, it's 3 nominees each, and we pick one winner from each of those. And with a topic as big and as broad as score and song, there's a lot left on the cutting room floor. And actually, I think more than anything this time, this is probably the week where we've had the most crossovers. So you'll probably see a lot of titles crossing over into all of our lists. I couldn't in good consciousness leave some of these off our list. I'm sure we're all the same. So this is going to be a really fun one tonight. And of course, film music is one thing that we're all really passionate about. I know, George, you're building up slowly but surely your vinyl collection on all things music. So this is going to be a fun one tonight. This is probably one of the categories that I've been most looking forward to discussing. We have videos once again with sound this time, so we don't know how this is going to go. The sound could be too loud. We could be raising our voices and shouting. We're going to play it by ear, so please do comment along and let us know if everything goes okay. And if everything goes okay, we might keep sound into the next few videos as well. So with all that being said, anyway, we'll just get onto the socials and then we'll jump into this thing.
Definitely, guys. So, score and song, 2 things we all love. There's so many choices. Think of the thousands of films, the thousands of soundtracks, let alone songs inside this soundtrack. So what we want you guys to do, comment below the 3 you'd want for each one. We're going to be doing score first. So first, you guys comment your 3 and then pick your winner. And then obviously when we get to song, do the same for song. We'll bring them up at the end for anyone that just comment on the stream. If not, you want to comment after, we'll reply to that message. So do that. We reply to all comments and be sure to obviously like and share it if you do like these videos. They are a bit different. It's a very nice short mini series. So it takes us right through to Oscar Sunday. However, we've got so much stuff coming your way. The best way to keep on top of it, because even we can't, let's be honest, is getting us on social media, which is Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy, and we have a link to TeePublic in the description below. And stick around tonight because another last-minute video, Netflix's F1 Drive to Survive Season 3 video, that's going to be out bang on midnight UK time. So that's already up and programmed for you guys to watch. So if you like F1, go watch it. If you don't like F1, go watch that show because it's one way of doing it. But we're not here to talk Formula 1, even though the Chain by Fleetwood Mac is the unofficial F1 theme. We're here to talk scores in, not Formula 1, in that film.
Yes, indeed. And I believe we're going to be starting with Chris, as always, with your original score choices.
Yes, I need to remember what order these are going to crop up now. So once again, 3 nominees each, and then all 3 of us as a group will be discussing the winner at the end of it. You pretty much all know a certain film that's going to appear on this list anyway. So we're kicking off with my nominees for Best Original Score. So first off, we have Vangelis' Blade Runner, completely revolutionized electronic scores. It feels alien, it feels otherworldly, but also distinctly similar too. There it is, Lord of the Rings. We all knew it was going to be on the list. Completely transports you to that world, plays on the cultures and the words of Tolkien themselves. Absolutely outstanding score. And Star Wars, a film that wouldn't have been what it is without that music. Definitely played into the success of that film. John Williams at his absolute best and themes that will last forever. And my winner for Best Original Score, it's Lord of the Rings. Come on, it's Howard Shore with Lord of the Rings. We all knew it was coming. This was so tough, though, because those other ones as well, I mean, of course, they're our nominees. They're always going to be in, like, our top 3, but really, it was so close. But Lord of the Rings will always take it for me. Not just because they're my favourite films of all time, but just as a musical score. Especially the complete recordings, it almost feels like, I mean, that's a huge task that Howard Shore was given. Like, you've got to compose music to the best-selling fantasy books of all time, these huge sprawling films. I mean, for most people, what, 12 hours of runtime? You know, that's, for most people, that's like 6 films. And he's got to do it in 3, and he's got to, you know, create these leitmotifs and themes for places and cultures and characters and make them all sort of have their own growth as the characters do in the actual film. And it's a score that absolutely does that. It tells the story of the Lord of the Rings through music. It's probably one of the best examples of leitmotifs I've ever seen in any film. Everything has a theme. It's instantly recognizable within the context of the film itself. And just the fact that you have this fantasy world, and yeah, you have the words of Tolkien, which he used a lot, to base a lot of the choral work in, especially with the Elvish stuff and the Dwarvish stuff. It uses that language, Elvish, Quenya, and Kuzdal for the dwarves, Black speech. It's all in there. It uses different time signatures, and each one is so distinctly tethered to that place. Nothing seems out of place. If you heard some of like the Elvish music over another culture, it immediately clashes with that. Everything's exactly where it needs to be. The use of instrumentation feels necessary to that place. You've got Mordor, for example, very industrial. It uses anvils, it uses metal and clanging sounds, and it sounds industrial when you hear it. And then compare that to the Shire theme, which feels very homely, and there's lots of tin whistles and it almost like folk music like. And this all came from one guy's mind. It's, like my hat goes off to like any musician or any composer, because it's a tough job. It's so tough to compose music, and especially on that scale. But there isn't a film, in my opinion, that comes close to the scale of The Lord of the Rings, and let alone the vastness of that musical score. And that all came from one man. And I've heard some of his scores that he did before. He mostly did like horror music. I think he did the score to The Fly and Silence of the Lambs and films such as that. And they're all good scores within their own right. But you can't imagine that the score that came out of the 3 Lord of the Rings films came from that one man. So I know I'm talking about the trilogy as a whole, but specifically Fellowship of the Ring, it was the first one that started establishing these themes. It's just incredible. You can't imagine, and I guess similar to Star Wars in this way, you can't imagine anyone else doing the music or hearing any other theme over those films or over that stuff. It has just become synonymous with that property now. So, unsurprisingly, Lord of the Rings for best score.
The thing with Fellowship that amazes me is that I've never listened to complete recordings. I've seen the film and I have listened to the score, so it's a bit of a change from last week, I guess we can say, but it's one of them where only the last week I actually started listening to it. But I am a sucker for that kind of, the prologue. When you get the Uruk-hai theme is one of my favorite themes of all time. I don't know why. It's always been up there. I don't know if it's because it's meme-worthy. It's good to go on a run to. There's so much stuff with it, but that soundtrack is so definitive, and it's that world-building environment that you don't want something you've heard before. You don't want something that we are familiar with in another sense of it. You need to get to that world and take it to the next level. And when someone can do it, that's one thing. But to make that good, make it memorable and actually not well composed, because I think any score's going to be well composed in complete truth, but it's that taking it out of isolation that you can listen to it and you can feel the moments in the film when they're happening on the screen. It goes in with the other, that the imagery matches what you're listening to.
I was going to say, it's one of those scores where you're immediately transported to wherever it puts you on the map. You don't even have to have the visuals on the screen. You can listen to the score and you immediately know, okay, I'm in the Shire, okay, I'm near Mordor. And it's just something that was so well done as far as universe building was concerned, that every single kind of, it felt like its own character, which was fantastic for the film. And it really did it was a massive driving force for why the films were quite successful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just motifs in music. I'm a sucker for like a theme attached to a character, and John Williams does that too. With Star Wars, where you hear that and you immediately know. You mentioned like it orientates you like geographically or with a given character, and that theme can change depending on what's going on with the character. A lot of scores do it, but in my opinion, no score's done it as well as Lord of the Rings. But yeah, we have a lot of other videos to get to. But yeah, I could talk about this for days, and maybe I will later this year. But who knows?
Definitely. So I'm going to move on to my picks. So mine for best original score are as follows. First up, we have Black Panther, one of the best soundtracks I've listened to in years. To me, the introduction of Ludwig Göransson making that household name that we all know and love. Sensational stuff. And I don't even want to talk over this. I feel disgusting speaking over Hans Zimmer. Inception easily as well, one of the greatest scores of all time. But of course, we have Star Wars by John Williams. A note that everybody knows, the film that changed cinema. This is something that is quite clearly the winner. I'm not even announcing it. Let's just keep talking Star Wars, Charlie, because it's a great follow-on from Lord of the Rings. It's, when you think of the most iconic sounds in cinema, and let's even take soundtracks out of it, the Star Wars, that moment, that is a sound effect for me. That isn't just a piece of score. That is something that's so synonymous with cinema. I know there's the 20th Fox fanfare, which we actually get back in the films now. But if you're being transported to this new world, because I don't remember fully watching Phantom Menace Age 3, But knowing that that would come on screen, that's going to introduce you to this world. Even though I was 3 and I didn't remember it, that would have been the key moment. Those words on the screen, the crawl coming up for the first time. And I think as generations have gone by, everyone can even tell you that without knowing it's Star Wars. And that's just the basis of the opening 10 seconds. I'm not going to give you a 2-hour evaluation, but what John Williams was able to do with the score did change cinema. What George Lucas wanted for his film, the dream film, the film he'd been spent many years working on, he wanted a traditional brass-sounding music. And his friend Steven Spielberg recommends the guy that made Jaws for him. And the fact that we can look at John Williams and say, you know, Jaws wasn't even the highlight of his career. Starting this film, Chris, going off what you said as well, nobody can touch this property, which is why it's incredible that when we've had the new content, we've had Disney Plus, The Mandalorian with Ludwig Göransson, we've had Giacchino working on Rogue One as well, we've had, I think, John Powell on Solo. What's been amazing about these guys is that they haven't tried to copy John Williams. No one can be John Williams. They have to take their own approach to it, but John Williams owns it. He's in his own world with this, and I'm trying not to talk about it as a whole, all 9 scores he did, but the fact that he was working on a franchise for over 40 years, and the consistency was there across each trilogy. Even to an episode on so briefly, the only really highlight of that is probably his actual soundtrack. But we're here to talk about A New Hope, and I think what you have to talk about that film is the scenes. You look at the action scenes where he has the right kind of music for that. It doesn't sound the same for 2 hours. He's got different songs. He's got different pieces of music. When you've got these characters, they are introduced via their own words. When Leia comes on screen, when the instruments are changed, you know, okay, I'm already in the knowledge that is Princess Leia, and that song is going to be there for that character forever. We get a Binary Sunset, which in this film was going to be Luke's theme, and that ended up becoming the Force theme. And every time that gets played in something else, will always take you back to Binary Sunset, one of the greatest songs in cinematic history. And the fact it's not even a music video or anything like that, the fact that anyone can tell you what's coming up. How can you make a scene of a man staring at the sky as emotional as it is? It's because John Williams is there to do it. He can take you on that journey from the highs into the lows, and he can spice things up. He can do the cantina music as well, and he can do the other action beats. It's an unbelievable score that doesn't stand the test of time. This is going to stand history. This will be a soundtrack people speak about for decades, and himself as a composer, I've said this for many years, he will be seen as not just a film composer, but he will be a classic musician, a composer that people speak about for generations and generations. That's the impact of his music, and this is the score that everyone will go to first. This is going to be the highlight. Just listen to this, see how it plays. Even the constant evolution of it over the years, when they've re-released it, they've had to merge songs, change songs. It always sounds the exact same because they know it's perfection and they can't do anything to try and change it.
The success of Star Wars, as I mentioned in my thing, wouldn't have been what it is. It was down to the editing of the actual film, because apparently the rough cut was just nonsense and couldn't go out there. It was down to the editing, and it was down to the music. If you didn't have that score, I don't think Star Wars would be what it is today. I genuinely believe that. And yeah, you're right. It's the music's almost synonymous as much as the voices or the actors or the sound effects in the actual film. It is such a layer to it. And yeah, it's just, like John Williams. I mean, the guy has done so many great scores. Indiana Jones, Superman, E.T. Like everything he touches just turns to gold. But I'd say Star Wars is his magnum opus. When he was scoring it, he took a lot of inspiration from classical composers like Holst with like the Planet Suite and Wagner, and there are even elements of that. I think there's a comparison video out there where he's like, you could say lifted elements, or you could say inspired by elements of that classical music there. But again, even like playing into those adventure serials that George Lucas was watching, and what he, like the Flash Gordon kind of stuff. When it's bombastic, it is bombastic. When it's exciting and action packed, it is those things. When it pulls back and is emotional, like Binary Sunset, it hits all the beats that it needs to. And yeah, like even to the point where now, where you get a Star Wars score comes out, whether it be Mandalorian. I know people have grown to love the music of Mandalorian, but whenever it doesn't use those themes that whenever it doesn't open with a title crawl in the Star Wars theme, it feels very alien because we're so used to that music with that property. So yeah, I mean, he's done so many great scores, but yeah, hands down, Star Wars is the one for me that will stand the test of time.
It is, yeah, like you said, a timeless score. It's so unusual that space films before this were basically just kind of the weird sound effects and kind of the unusual music, whatever they could find using like a theremin or something like that. And they've come in and they've basically made, well, just fantastic classical music to go along with it. It fits so well. There isn't really much more I can say about it. It is one of those scores where you just kind of sit back and completely admire it for what it is. Oh, I guess I'm talking now again. No, go on, Josh.
I was just going to say it's hard to speak about stuff when it's been spoken to about to death. It's like, what more can you say that's not been said over 4 years? And that's not even a cop out. That's literally whatever we say, someone has already spoken about, and it's because it's right up there, and it will be there for generations to come.
Okay, well, now it is time for my 3 picks for best original score. So first up, we have Blade Runner, another pick on this list, which we've already had before. This is just such a beautiful soundtrack to listen to. It is unbelievable. Wow, that's so quick. This is Chariots of Fire. The sense of freedom that you get from listening to this soundtrack is unbelievable. Great for running to, by the way, on the beach. And Inception as well. This soundtrack got me into soundtracks. That's all I can really say about it. It is phenomenal as far as modern standards go. And my winner is Blade Runner. I couldn't pick anything else. I really couldn't. We were actually talking about this beforehand. I didn't realize that he'd only really done 2 major soundtracks, and I managed to pick both of them. But with Blade Runner, what you get is a dreamlike, ethereal kind of landscape that basically becomes a character in its own. You listen to the score of the film, and it sets the tone, it sets the mood, it allows the characters around it and the city around it to become alive. And that's very rare that you can get that from a score where it heightens the film to that extent. The fact that we got a sequel film and they had to reuse, like Tears and Rain, they had to reuse parts of the previous score just because of how good it was in that original film. They couldn't leave bits of it out. They had to insert some of it in to pay homage to it. And Vangelis, he hasn't done many film scores at all. But this one is easily not only his magnum opus, but honestly my pick for the best score of all time.
This makes me very happy that you've picked Blade Runner, because I guess technically that makes it a clean sweep for me that all 3 of my nominees have technically gone on to win across all of ours. So I'm really happy that you picked Blade Runner. And I was going to pick something different on mine just for the sake of diversity, but I felt wrong not putting Blade Runner on my list. It's an outstanding score. It's so immersive, and it's so unlike any other score that I've heard before or since. Every track feels different, but it all still feels part of the same world, which is tremendous. It feels almost what's the word I'm looking for? Like improvised in some parts, especially like Blade Runner Blues, which is one of my favorite tracks on there. It feels like you've just got Vangelis sitting at a keyboard, sitting at the synthesizer, and just twiddling with some notes down like a pentatonic scale, and just hitting record and seeing what comes out. It feels experimental. It feels different. It feels otherworldly. It definitely feels like a sci-fi score in parts, but then it also feels very real. There are moments where I never know how to pronounce his name. Is it Demis Roussos or something? It's like this vocal part. It feels like Arabic or like Egyptian, and it's very haunting and very different. But you could also imagine hearing that in like an Eastern culture. So it feels kind of part of our world, but also different. And it also plays on the noir aspects as well of Blade Runner. There's like these, I think it's the love theme, definitely in the soundtrack. You've got these very sort of sleazy sounding saxophones, this very sort of like sexy sound to it, which just goes with the sort of like underbelly of the city and the smog filled streets. And it plays on all those aspects of the noir score. So it's pulling from all these different genres, which Blade Runner as a film did itself. And it's just massively handled. It's a great one to go out on a night walk to, or like when it's raining. Like you have to listen to that rain sound as well, I think, when you listen to the Blade Runner soundtrack, because it's just such a texture and such a layer to it. It's outstanding. It's one of the best pieces of music, one of the best albums ever put to record.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing of Blade Runner is that because it's not glamorous in the sense that it's not a film people speak about until they start talking about it. It's one of those films that it's not cool, but it is. There is a reason it has this acclaim. And you look at sci-fi films, certainly post Star Wars, the boom of we need this action beat, we need this, we need the brass, we need it to sound like Star Wars. And then you take this film, which is essentially just the journey of an individual. This is all about Deckard and Harris Ford. It's quite a lonely sound, and that's because he's this lonely individual. I think that's why it works so well. That's why you're drawn to it, is because it feels like it's a score for him. It doesn't feel like themes here and there. It feels like this is the story of Deckard being told by music. It reminds me of, not to do a comparison, I wish more things would do this, but they released a score-only version of The Last Jedi where you could watch a film on mute and they play the original recordings over the top. I think more films need to do stuff like this, and Blade Runner is one of them, because every sense of emotion, feeling, or development is conveyed by the soundtrack you're listening to.
Okay, I guess we're moving now on to the second half of the video with Best Original Song.
Before we do, I am going to give a shout out actually to Tom, who you may have seen either in old videos or fairly recently on the channel. His Twitter handle @filmsandbeer. He commented on one of our posts earlier on today about his 3 favorite scores that he would nominate. So once again, go and find us on Twitter for more of that. That's cinema_savvy. So the 3 that he nominated, we had The Last Samurai, Hans Zimmer.
Beautiful.
Once Upon a Time in the West, Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
And again, Blade Runner by Vangelis. And
He picked Blade Runner, didn't he?
no, his winner was Once Upon a Time in the West, Ennio Morricone. He's put the best score I've ever listened to. So once again, we encourage you to send in your nominees as well and your winner for Best Original Score. You still have time to do it. We're going to keep this ball rolling. We're going to keep the show going because we still have more music to talk about. So we're moving on to Best Original Song now. So once again, it's back to me with Best Original Song. So without further ado, here are my nominees. I had to have a Disney song on there, and it had to be Beauty and the Beast. This is just synonymous with Disney. Brilliant lyrics by Howard Ashman and music by Alan Menken. It's just gorgeous. Once again, Lord of the Rings. You ever going to get bored of that? It was very difficult to pick a song from this as to which one, but it had to be Enya. Her voice sounds elvish, perfectly from that world. And another ballad, Take My Breath Away, from the 80s. Absolute classic. Tell me you haven't sung this at the top of your lungs at some point. No, just me. Okay. And the winner of Best Original Song goes to Beauty and the Beast. I had to. I just had to. Now I'm kind of cheating with this one because there are 2 versions of this song in the actual film itself. You've got the one sung by Angela Lansbury during the actual ballroom dance scene, and then you have a more radio-friendly pop version that was sung by Celine Dion and Peabo Bryson. So I'm going to kind of talk about the song as a whole, but there are 2 distinctly different versions of it. So originally, apparently, this song was going to be a rock song, which wouldn't have worked, and then thankfully someone called it out and said that it should be a ballad, quite rightly so. And they wanted Angela Lansbury to sing the song. Now, she had her reservations about it. She didn't want to sing it because she felt like her voice wasn't strong enough, and she was really kind of nervous about it. And they said, just humor us with 1 take. And she nailed it in that first take. That take that you hear in the film is done in 1 take. And apparently everyone in that recording booth was in tears. And it is a song that instills that in you. The lyrics are beautiful. Howard Ashman, he was dying at the time, so this was kind of like the last project that he worked on. And, you know, even right up until his death, I think he's credited with like an in memoriam at the end of the credits. He gave it his all. Lyrics by him, gorgeous lyrics. And then Alan Menken, like, that guy can do absolutely no wrong, whether it be Disney or any other score. And the fact, just the score itself, like just how sprawling it is. But this is the one song. It's the titular track, obviously, of the film. But talking about like the pop version now, where Disney realized that this was something special and probably wanted to make more money. Let's be honest, like they are a business at the end of the day. Celine Dion wasn't a big name at this time. She'd been fired from, well, not fired, but she wasn't included in the soundtrack for another animated film that came out the same year, An American Tale, Fievel Goes West, one of my favorite animated films. She wasn't a household name at that time. The reason that they drafted in Peabo Bryson, who at the time was much more well-known than she was, and after the success of this song, you know, charged her on to stardom, and then we got, you know, her career obviously taken off, and now she's one of the most renowned singers probably in the world at this point. It's just amazing, and it put Disney songs back on the map, even in terms of like radio play as well. It was the first Disney song within 30 years to get put back on the radio. So Beauty and the Beast as a film was special in itself because it kickstarted the Disney Renaissance and sort of rejuvenated them as an animation company. And then obviously they had their string of successes after that, but also in terms of the music, and it was all down to this song. So it's always been one of my favorite songs. Every time that song cues up, whether it's the pop version, whether it's the Angela Lansbury version, I always get those Disney goosebumps, and they are a thing. They are a thing, and it's just a gorgeous song. It's probably my favorite Disney song. And not only that, but it is my favorite original song of all time as well.
I love Beauty and the Beast. It's one of those really underrated films. Not underrated, sorry, not even overrated. It's one of those Disney scores where it's had its live action remake. Not to bring that into it, Chris is furious right now.
Thank you for that.
It's one of them where one of the key reasons why Disney would go with that is when you think of that film, you actually think of the music before you think of the film, and it is a phenomenal film. But you are thinking of that song, that specifically that song. You say the title and you kind of want to linger and sing it. Not that we can or do it properly, but it just comes up in the conversation, and it is one of the best songs from all the Disney films. It's not my favorite, but it is probably better than Scar and the Lion King. I have to bring him up. I'm sorry, but you can see why that song was. Instead, bringing it back on the radio, all that stuff, which I had no clue about. You'd understand why out of all of those, that is the one people would listen to, and I think now we have a new generation, as in not even our generation, ones older than us, that were not even brought up with that, but they would have been like 10, 11 when that came out, and that was probably a big thing, and then their kids were listening to it and grew up with it, and then their kids are the ones now listening to it because of these remixes. So it's a song that has all that history to it that it is rightfully spoken about as one of the best ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering whether there's been any kind of that have done the same kind of thing that it did since then, as far as the radio stuff is concerned, being a Disney animated film that's made radio play on a regular basis.
Frozen?
Oh, God, I mean, you had Elton John, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? You had Colours of the Wind, Pocahontas.
Did that get radio play too much? I know Frozen.
It was a big hit, that song. I'm trying to think what else. A lot of Disney films have done it. You had Phil Collins with the Tarzan soundtrack, which probably got on the radio at some point too. So, but it was really this, like that pop song
that
where
kickstarted it.
We've got a good thing here. We can just make a pop version of that and make more money and get more notice. And it's working for them. They still do it to this day.
Yeah.
No, definitely. With that being said, we are moving on to my best original song, which is I know. Rick,
I know what's in it because I edited these, so I'm excited.
I have no idea what this is going to be.
I'm very excited. It's very hard to narrow it down to 3 Olympic winners, so I've tried to spice it up, but they are as follows.
It's spicy.
Absolutely, you can't get it wrong. Eye of the Tiger, Fort Rocky 3, one of the greatest workout songs. No, the greatest workout song in modern history. And we have Goldfinger, which I almost accidentally said in sync, which isn't my aim, but Shirley Bassey, you cannot go wrong with this. Defied a franchise. And then there's Randy Newman, You've Got a Friend in Me. What more can be said? One of the most wonderful, heartwarming songs in cinema. It's an absolute joy to listen to every time it appears. But that is not my winner. My winner is, of course, Goldfinger by Shirley Bassey, for many, many reasons. And we will get into Goldfinger later in a couple of months as a little teaser of what's coming down the line. But this song, when even aside from James Bond, because this isn't the best James Bond song, it is, but this video isn't that. This video is the best song of all time. When you think of a song that has been made for a film, that is the only thing going through your head, Shirley Bassey, Goldfinger. It cannot come on, and you cannot not try and sing it with her, and no one can do it as well as her. Reading some of the history of it is as insane as listening to it. So, Chris, you know music far better than me. Jimmy Page was involved at the age of 20 working on this song. Shirley Bassey was originally with the original James Bond composer. He was on her tour and he recommended her for this. The producers didn't want her. The producers didn't think her voice was good. The song would be good. And here she is on the greatest Bond film ever made with the greatest Bond theme, not setting a standard of future films, but every Bond song that has come out over the 50 plus years that have now followed. Is it better than Goldfinger? One has come close, which was sung by Adele, which was very almost on my list. But I think with these songs, we have to talk about the film that comes with them. And that's a big thing for the Bond films. There's so many nonsense James Bond films where the songs don't mean anything or something's not quite working. But if it's going to set the stage of what's to come, you're literally describing the villain. And the words are beautiful. I don't want to sing it because I'm going to sound like the Alan Partridge version of it. But it's everything you need to know. Getting into that film, you know, sort of 10, 15 minutes, okay, what am I in for? The background imagery to match it when you're getting on screen, I think, is as important. Those opening credits. Again, all of this stuff, there were teasers of it in the first two, but the fact it was nailed in with this third one is insane. It's really hard to talk about it because I don't know what more I can say. I keep saying that tonight, but as a defining song, as the best song I've ever heard written for a film, made for a film, whatever you want to say, it has to be Goldfinger. I don't think there's anything else that I can say to that. I'm sorry.
I think it's a special song, and I think there's a reason that people regard it so highly as well in terms of the catalogue of Bond music, is that you had Dr. No, you had From Russia with Love, this was your third one, and this was kind of the one that set the modern mould for what would be the Bond film. All the ingredients, you know, like the Bond girl, the Bond theme song, you know, everything that goes with a Bond film that we now know started with Goldfinger. And what a song to go with it. I mean, Shirley Bassey, for a lot of people, is the voice of Bond. She is to me. I do have Bond songs that I do prefer over this, but when you think of Bond, you think of this, and you think of that brass section as well in the background. You talk about, you know, when you hear Goldfinger, you want to sing it. You also want to follow it up with that punctuation of that brass right after it too. And that is the Bond sound as well. That kind of, you know, I can't even describe what it is, but that brass sound to it, that slinky kind of brass and trombones and everything that goes along with Bond. So it's got that history to it in that it is kind of the archetypal Bond movie. For a lot of people, it might even be their favorite Bond film. I don't know. But yeah, in a few months' time, we'll be discussing it. So I don't know much about Bond in the context of the greater whole. I am very much a sort of casual fan, and I'll be introducing myself to a lot more Bond films in a few months. But it's goddamn Shirley Bassey with Bond, isn't it? Like, what a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and it's please, sorry, but it's the fact that it's the fact they didn't want it to go ahead. They didn't like her, they didn't rate her, and they were trying to get her off Diamonds Are Forever, which is one of the only good things about that film is that song too. And we almost had her in recent Bond films too. It's like the shares this legacy, but it's always tied back to Goldfinger. It's where you sort of start and end the Bond discussion to me.
I was going to say, when it comes to Bond songs, she is just the queen of them. She is the one who basically started them all. I mean, I have been watching back through some of the Bond films. The first two Bond films, their opening title credit sequences didn't have songs to them. This was the first one that actually had a song to go with it and kind of linked up with the actual video of the figures of gold and everything like that. It's so iconic. It's very difficult to top. I have my own personal preference for what my favorite Bond song is, and it was sung by Chris Cornell. But as far as what I think is probably the best overall, I think you can't get anywhere close to this. There will always be personal favorites by everyone, but no one can deny that this is the best Bond song and one of the best original songs of all time. Okay.
I will save my favorite Bond song for a later date. It is neither of those.
Yeah. I know what yours is, but it's not because of Bond, is it?
That's my second favorite. No, it's from another 80s one. It's I may as well say it now.
Living Daylights.
That's third.
Gladys Knight. License to Kill. License to Kill.
Gladys Knight's my favorite.
Fantastic song as well. Why didn't you put it in your picks, Chris? So here we go. Best original song. My picks. First up, we have 8 Mile. This is the story of NMM's life, and it was at the end of the film. It perfectly encapsulates what goes on in the film and what happened with his career. Purple Rain, one of the greatest songs of all time. It is, I mean, just listen. It's just beautiful. I can't have words for that. Sing in the Rain, one of the best musical songs of all time. One of the best musical performances of all time with Gene Kelly. A fantastic song that you can just dance to the rain in anytime you're outside. Just stick on that and listen to it. But my number one pick is the one which I didn't really talk about much. I stuttered through. It is Purple Rain. Wow. One of the greatest songs of all time. And it's put into its film, which is titled after the album. We did have to do a little bit of research before this to check whether it was an original song. It was. The development of the film started at about the same time as the development of the album, which is very unusual. I never knew that about this song. But what Prince was able to do with not only this album, but with this song was encapsulate really what it means to be alive and what it means to love someone. And this is a song which everyone will just listen to and just sit back and sit in awe. I remember one of the first ever Super Bowl performances I watched was of Prince singing this song live on stage. Just the fanfare of it, the themes of the song to do with apparently the world ending and just wanting to be with the one that you love at the end. It's so reflective and so beautiful. It's a song which I listen to on a regular basis. It's on a lot of my playlists, and yeah, there's not much more I can say about it. It's just one of those songs where everyone knows it, and it's fantastic.
It's really difficult to talk about this song in isolation because of the album that it goes with. I mean, the film is like a whole different thing. I think we even did a review many years ago now on the actual film itself. Film's an absolute guilty pleasure film. Inherently not a great film, but it's enjoyable for its own right, and it's entirely down to the music.
The ending.
The ending, I mean, that's what I mean. It's the music, right? That's the biggest takeaway. So I was the person who raised the reservation because I didn't know whether this would count. I didn't know sort of like the ins and outs of it because I knew that it was an album first and then it was made into a film after. I didn't realize the two were sort of being worked on at the same time.
It was 1 month between release, exactly one month.
So I don't know if it was sort of like in Prince's, like he's surely going to make an album of music first and foremost. So I didn't know how much of his ideas for the songs would be from like a visual standpoint as well, knowing that they're going to be put in a film. But as a song on its own, I mean, the whole album's fantastic. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. There is no filler on that album. Every single song is absolutely stunning. But Purple Rain is just a tonal shift on that entire album. You have some ballads on there like When Doves Cry and other songs such as that. But when you hit that song, that is the big finale. That is the big takeaway. Obviously, it's the titular song. It's the chords in it as well. Just from that first chord that's hit, and it's just sort of like left there, and it's just like left to suspend, and then it continues. I think it was quite an experimental song for Prince as well. I don't know how many weeks it was like atop the charts, but I know it was like a ridiculous amount of weeks at the top. It's everything. It's emotional. The whole song is a journey. And you can't find yourself just listening to a section of it. Even just in that video there, where I had to cut it to like 8 seconds, is a travesty because you need to listen to the full 8 minutes. The song's an experience, and the best songs always are, no matter how long they are. Whether it's like a Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like 6.5 minutes, or it's a song akin to that, where you just, it's a song that you listen to, which sounds stupid because of course you listen to music, but it's not a song that you'll just throw on as sort of like background noise. It's one that commands your attention. It's Prince at his best for me.
I only know 2 Prince songs, so I'm politely getting myself out of this conversation.
Is it Party Like It's 1999 and Purple Rain?
No, it's Party Man and Kiss, and it's only
right on. Okay.
I'm gonna quietly just stay silent and not insult everyone because I've not seen the film or listened to it.
Please tell me you've at least listened to Purple Rain. George.
My music knowledge is abysmal, and it always is. So there will be songs I've probably heard of, but I don't count on it. Trust me.
Well, I was going to just go back. This being the kind of finale song of the film, and just seeing him up on the stage, and there's barely any cutaways. He's just there and he's just singing it, and it feels so emotional. You connect with him as far as the film's context is concerned. I believe it was his character called the Kid.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But you just connect with him in that moment as he is singing his heart out, basically laying everything on the line, basically saying, at the end of the world, I want to be with you. And it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And George, you need to listen to that song.
You definitely need to listen to Purple Rain. That shocked me. I can't believe you haven't.
Unbelievable.
I reckon you've probably heard it. You just don't know it by name. Like I guarantee.
I know Kiss because of Gulliver's Travels, and Party Man because of Batman. And
Party Man's fine. Yeah, no, Party Man.
I'll just ruin this theme for you all.
Well, I mean, we're at the end now, so it's good. We can wrap this thing up before it gets ugly. So that'll do it for our nominations for Best Original Score and Best Original Song. Before we sign off, we will announce next week's category. As we mentioned, we're doing this week to week in the lead up to the actual night of the Oscars. So this was a really fun one to do today. Love talking about film music, and I'm especially going to like next week's as well, because next week we're going to be talking through our nominees and picks for Best Animated Film. So that's going to be very interesting. So that'll be, again, exactly the same time next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. GMT. And in the meantime, we want to know what your favorite scores are and songs, whether you want to get those to us in a comment on here, whether you want to head over to our socials on Facebook or Twitter, sorry. I was getting confused there. So yeah, we want to hear from you. We want to keep the conversation going because we can see there's some people watching. So let us know some of your picks too. Oh my God, now we've reached that part of the show where we have to go through all of our other content because we have so much coming out. George, you know the dates for things. You mentioned Drive to Survive review is going to go up tonight at midnight. I'm trying to get everything in my head. And then is it retro reviews next week on Tuesday? Is that our next one? No, Marvel.
Let's talk some Infinity Saga because coming up next, guys, for you guys that aren't aware, thank you to all the new viewers that have been joining in for this, to get a lot of new people on, a lot of shout outs, really appreciate that. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, there is another Infinity Saga retrospective. The next one up is the end of Phase 1. It's the very first Avengers film. We've gone through the 5 Origin films. They've been up. They've been great fun. I've been loving chatting with everyone who's been mentioning to them. So do carry that on. And next up is the team. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Drive to Survive, of course, this midnight. Retro reviews coming this Tuesday, the 16th. We've got Point Break, which is unintentionally scheduled around the Avengers, which did have a Point Break reference. If you did miss our last one, that's Face Off. That was amazing. So go check that out because we don't know who or how to talk about the two guys. We don't even know the character names. We just know it's Nicolas Cage and John Travolta being absolute psychopathic weirdos. And I'm going to leave that there. And starting next Friday, if you're not sick and fed up of Marvel, we've got more Marvel for you. We've got Falcon and Winter Soldier spoiler reviews. They're going to start next Friday. So do keep your eyes out on that for any other additional content that may come up because if you want to know what random stuff is going to come up, then I keep telling you, social media, Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter, Cinema_Savvy, Letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy, and TeePublic link is in that description below. We have got too much stuff coming out. So
we've got a whole calendar of stuff coming out.
There are Oscar films too. It's insane. It's happening. It's go time. We're basically on daily content now, which is a terrifying prospect.
But we love doing it, and we love talking movies, and we love talking, especially for this video, music in movies. So big thank you to everyone that has been watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care, everyone.